The last light of the day didn't so much leave as it softened, like a blanket being pulled up, slowly and carefully, over the shoulders of the world. Rowan noticed this the moment the train doors sighed open. Not the big, bright sigh of a city station with announcements and footsteps and rolling suitcases, but a small, tired breath that drifted into the evening air and vanished. The platform was modest, pale stone underfoot, a short wooden bench, a single lamp already glowing with a honey-colored steadiness. A little sign, painted by hand, said, "Briar Glenn," in calm letters that didn't try to impress anyone. Rowan stepped down with one small bag and a larger one that held soft things. A thick sweater, a worn paperback, socks that were somehow warmer for being old. The air smelled like damp earth and distant wood smoke, the way it does when a day has been mild and a night intends to be gentle. The train rolled away without urgency, its sound fading into a hush that felt intentional, as if the valley preferred quiet and had learned how to ask for it. Rowan stood for a moment simply to feel the stillness. There were places where stillness was sharp, where silence made a person self-conscious, like they were intruding, like they ought to make some polite noise to justify being there. But this wasn't that kind of quiet. This quiet was welcoming. It held space the way a soft chair holds a tired body, without judgment, without demand. Rowan breathed in. The breath came out slower than it went in. Ahead, beyond the platform, the land gently dipped and rose again, a rolling, friendly shape. There were trees, leafy and dark at their edges, as if ink had been brushed along the outlines. Somewhere, unseen, water moved over stones with an unhurried sound. Rowan could not see the stream, but could hear it, a steady murmuring that made the mind feel less crowded. A path led away from the station, lit at intervals by small lanterns on posts. Each lantern held a flame protected by glass. Each flame looked like it knew what it was doing. Rowan adjusted the strap of the larger bag and began walking. The gravel underfoot crunched softly, but even that sound felt muted, tucked into the evening as if it belonged there. Every step was a small agreement between shoe and path. Every few paces, Rowan could smell something new, a hint of pine, a faint sweetness from late flowers, the clean scent of cool air that had traveled over grass. A sign on the first bend read, "Cottages, this way," with an arrow painted in the same calm hand as the station sign. Underneath, smaller. "Take your time." Rowan did. The day had been full of movement. The early alarm, the quick breakfast eaten standing up, the long train ride that had rattled and rocked and made the body feel as if it had to keep bracing for something. Now, with the path steady beneath, with lantern light pooling warmly on the ground, Rowan could feel the body remembering it was allowed to unclench. The shoulders lowered a fraction. The jaw softened. Rowan's hands, which had been gripping the bag straps too tightly, loosened and rested naturally. The path curved past a small field where tall grass swayed, silvered by the last of the light. Beyond it, the shapes of cottages appeared, scattered as if placed thoughtfully rather than densely. Each cottage had at least one window glowing. Some had curtains drawn partway, revealing lamplight and the suggestion of bookshelves or a table set for tea. No one hurried, no one called out. It didn't feel lonely. It felt private in the kindest way. Rowan reached a little wooden footbridge and paused at the top of it. The bridge crossed the stream Rowan had been hearing. Up close, the sound was clearer. Water slipping around stones, making tiny bubbles, singing softly to itself. The stream reflected the lanterns as trembling ribbons of gold. Rowan leaned a hand on the bridge railing. The wood was smooth, worn by many hands over many seasons. It was cool to the touch, but not cold, just pleasantly real. Below, the water moved with a steady patience. It did not rush. It did not stall. It simply went on, as if going on were the easiest thing in the world. Rowan watched long enough for the mind to start doing what it did best when given permission. Nothing in particular. Then, with another slow breath, Rowan crossed the bridge and continued. A short way past the bridge was a tiny square, more a widened patch of path than a town center. There was a small notice board with neatly pinned cards. A note about fresh bread on Saturdays, another about a walking group that met on Sunday mornings and had a slow pace, underlined twice. There was also a painted wooden arrow that said, Maple Cottage. Rowan followed it. Maple Cottage sat slightly apart from the others, not distant, just tucked into a place where a cluster of trees offered shelter, and the stream curved nearby as if to keep it company. A low stone wall bordered a small garden. Even in the dim light, Rowan could make out pale flowers and the rounded leaves of herbs. The air near the garden smelled faintly of mint. A porch ran along the front of the cottage, and on the porch, under the warm glow of a lantern, sat a basket with a folded blanket. Next to it was a simple note held down by a smooth stone. Rowan set the bags down and picked up the note. Welcome. The key is in the blue pot by the door. There's soup in the kitchen if you're hungry. Kettle's already filled. You're safe here. Sleep well. Rowan read it once, then again, not because it was difficult, but because something about the last line made the chest feel strange in a gentle way, like a door opening to let fresh air into a room that had been closed too long. The blue pot was exactly where the note said it would be. A small ceramic pot by the door, filled with smooth stones, and among them, a key tied with a bit of twine. The lock turned without resistance. The door opened with a soft click and a faint sound of old hinges that had been cared for. Warmth rolled out. Not the dry blast of a heater turned too high, but the steady warmth of a space that had been warmed slowly. The air smelled of wood and herbs, and something savory that made Rowan's stomach remember it existed. Rowan stepped inside and gently closed the door. For a moment, there was only the sound of the stream outside and the quiet ticking of a clock somewhere in the cottage. The cottage itself seemed to exhale, as if it had been waiting for someone to arrive. And now that someone had, it could settle. Rowan set the bags down by a small bench near the entrance. On the bench was a folded scarf, soft, knitted, the color of oatmeal. Above the bench hung a row of hooks, empty and ready, and a small framed picture of pressed leaves. Shoes came off. Socks sank into a rug that felt thick and kind underfoot. The room ahead was open and simple. A small kitchen to the right, a sitting area to the left, and a dining table in the middle with 2 chairs, as if someone had thought, maybe you'll have company, maybe you won't. Either way will be fine. Asterisk. A lamp on the side table was already on, casting a pool of light that made the corners of the room feel softer. There was a couch with a blanket draped over it, the blanket slightly rumpled as if it had recently been used for a nap. Rowan walked farther in, slowly, letting the space introduce itself. On the kitchen counter sat a pot with a lid, and beside it a small note written on the same calm paper as the one outside. Soup. Low heat. Take as much as you like. Bread in the tin. Butter in the crock. Tea. Chamomile or mint. The mugs are in the left cupboard. Rowan touched the lid of the soup pot. The metal was warm. Steam escaped when the lid lifted, carrying with it the scent of carrots and thyme and something creamy that made it smell like comfort rather than cooking. The stove was already on the lowest setting, a tiny blue flame that looked content to do very little for a long time. Rowan found a bowl in the cupboard, ceramic and slightly heavy, the kind of bowl that sat well in the hands. A spoon hung from a hook by the stove, wooden and smooth. Soup poured slowly, thick and warm. Rowan carried the bowl to the table, sat down, and wrapped both hands around it for a moment before taking a first bite. The taste was simple, well-balanced. Not exciting, not surprising, just good. The sort of food that did not ask for an opinion. It simply nourished. Rowan ate slowly, not because of manners, but because the body wanted to take its time remembering what it felt like to be taken care of. Between bites, Rowan listened. The clock ticked. The stream murmured outside. Somewhere farther away, an owl offered a single soft call, then fell quiet again, as if even the owl didn't want to interrupt the evening. When the bowl was empty, Rowan sat for a few more minutes, hands resting on the table, feeling the warmth of the soup settling gently inside. Then Rowan stood and washed the bowl, the warm water sliding over fingers. The sponge smelled faintly of lemon. The dish towel hanging by the sink was clean and soft, with a small embroidered leaf in one corner. Everything in the cottage seemed to have been chosen with patience. Rowan filled the kettle, though the note had said it already was. It felt nice to do something small and simple. The kettle's metal was cool. Water gurgled pleasantly as it poured in. Rowan set the kettle on the stove, turned on the burner, and listened to the very beginning of heating, just a quiet, increasing whisper. While the kettle warmed, Rowan wandered through the sitting area. There was a bookshelf with books arranged not by color or height, but by the gentle logic of use. Some looked old and well-loved. Some were newer, their spines uncreased. A small basket held a few magazines about gardens and simple recipes. Another basket held yarn and knitting needles, as if someone had paused mid-project and might come back at any moment. On the side table, a candle sat next to a box of matches. The candle smelled faintly of beeswax. Rowan didn't light it. The lamp was enough. The couch invited sitting, but the body wanted one more thing first: to see the bedroom, to confirm, without words, that there would be a bed, a soft place to land. Rowan walked down a short hallway. The hallway walls were painted a pale color that reflected light gently, and there were framed prints of landscapes, fields, trees, a quiet shoreline. The frames were wooden, warm-toned. The floorboards creaked once, softly, like a little acknowledgement. At the end of the hallway, a door stood slightly open. Rowan pushed it wider. The bedroom was small and calm, A bed sat against one wall with a quilt pulled smooth, the quilt patterned with leaves in muted greens and browns. 2 pillows rested at the head, plump and inviting. A window faced the trees, and the curtains were half drawn, letting in the last blue of the evening. On the bedside table was a small lamp and a glass carafe of water with a matching cup turned upside down on top. Next to the lamp sat a book, face down, a ribbon marking the page, as if someone had been reading and simply stepped away. The air in the room smelled of clean linen and something faintly lavender. Rowan walked to the bed and touched the quilt. It was thick but soft, the kind of warmth that didn't trap heat but held it gently. In the corner of the room stood a small chair with a folded robe over the back. The robe looked plush and heavy enough to make anyone feel secure. Rowan stood still, letting the room settle into the senses. "A safe place," the body said quietly, in the language of muscles and breath. Rowan returned to the kitchen just as the kettle began to sing. Not loudly, just a low rising note that felt like a reminder. Rowan turned off the burner and chose a mug from the cupboard. A wide, sturdy mug with a small chip in the glaze that made it feel real and used and loved. Chamomile went into a little infuser. Hot water poured over it, and steam rose with a soft floral scent. Rowan carried the mug to the couch and sat down, sinking into cushions that yielded slowly. The blanket on the couch was wool, slightly scratchy in a pleasant way, and Rowan pulled it over the legs. The first sip of tea was warm, mild, soothing. It spread through the chest like a quiet light. Rowan stared at nothing in particular for a while. The lamp made the room glow. The shadows were soft-edged and friendly. The stream outside continued its small, endless song, the same note over and over in a way that never became annoying, only reassuring. Rowan took another sip and another. The eyelids felt heavier, not suddenly, but steadily, the way a book grows heavier in the hands as sleep approaches. Rowan set the mug down on the side table, careful and unhurried. And then Rowan did something that felt almost ceremonial. Stood up, turned off the lamp in the sitting area, and walked down the hallway toward the bedroom, guided by the softer light spilling from the kitchen. In the bedroom, Rowan turned on the bedside lamp. The light was dimmer than the others, a small circle of warmth that didn't ask the mind to wake up. Rowan changed into comfortable clothes, the softest ones. The robe went on for a moment, simply because it felt nice, then was hung back on the chair. Rowan brushed teeth, washed hands, moved through the small routines like a lullaby the body already knew. When Rowan slid into bed, the sheets were cool for a second, then warmed quickly. The quilt settled over the body with a gentle weight. The pillow cradled the head in a way that made the neck relax immediately, as if the pillow had been shaped by someone who understood tiredness. Rowan turned to one side and listened. The cottage had its own quiet sounds. The faint settling of wood, the soft tick of the clock, the whisper of the stream outside. Somewhere in the kitchen, the tea cooled, and the air held the lingering scent of chamomile. Rowan's thoughts drifted to small things. The lanterns along the path, the note on the porch, the warmth of the soup, the calm, steady certainty in the words, "You're safe here." The breath slowed, in and out, in and out. The body grew heavier, sinking into the mattress as if the bed were gently accepting the day and storing it away somewhere far from waking. Rowan let the eyes close fully. In the dark behind the eyelids, there was no urgency, only softness, only the quiet sense of being held by a place that expected nothing and offered everything simple: warmth, stillness, time. And as sleep came closer, the last thing Rowan felt was gratitude, quiet and wordless, like a small candle being covered so it could glow longer. Rowan slept the way a candle burns down in a sheltered lantern, steadily, quietly, without being disturbed by the world outside. The quilt held a gentle weight, and the pillow kept Rowan's head in a soft, dependable cradle. At some point in the night, the bedside lamp clicked off, not because anyone touched it, but because it was set to do so, thoughtfully after a while. Darkness filled the room in a calm, even layer, and the sounds of the cottage became a kind of slow music. The faint tick of the clock, the stream's unhurried murmur, the occasional settling creak of wood that sounded more like a stretch than a complaint. Rowan's dreams weren't sharp-edged. They weren't stories with plots. They were more like impressions: warm light, a clean mug, hands wrapped around a bowl, the steady rhythm of footsteps on gravel. In the dream space, the little lanterns along the path glowed endlessly, and nothing needed to be decided quickly. When morning arrived, it did so politely. Light seeped through the half-drawn curtains in a pale milk and honey shade. The air in the bedroom felt cool in a clean way, the kind that made the quilt feel especially comforting. Rowan's first awareness was not of thoughts, but of sensations: the warmth under the blanket, the softness under the cheek, the slight chill on the tip of the nose where it met the air. Rowan didn't move right away. There was no alarm, no sudden noise, no urgent buzzing. There was only the gentle knowledge that the world had turned into a new day, and that this new day wasn't asking to be conquered. It was simply offering itself. Rowan took a slow breath in and out. The exhale was longer, as if it had all the time it needed. Somewhere outside, a bird made a small sound, one clear note, then another, like someone tapping a spoon lightly against a cup. The stream continued its steady conversation with stones. The room smelled faintly of lavender and clean linen, a scent that seemed to say, rest was welcomed here. Rowan blinked, unhurried, and looked around. The quilt's leaf pattern was clearer in the morning light, greens muted like moss, browns like bark after rain. The bedside table held the carafe of water, the glass cool to the touch when Rowan lifted it. A sip of water tasted like nothing at all, and that nothing was exactly right. Pure, plain, satisfying. Rowan sat up slowly, letting the body notice itself. The muscles felt heavy in a pleasant way, like they'd finally stopped bracing. The mind, usually quick to gather its list of tasks, lingered in a softer place, as if it were still wrapped in the blanket. Feet found the rug beside the bed. The rug was thick, warming the soles immediately. Rowan stood and stretched, arms overhead, shoulders rolling back, spine lengthening with a slow, private relief. In the corner, the robe waited patiently, draped over the chair. Rowan put it on, and the fabric settled around the body like a quiet embrace. Plush, slightly weighted, the kind of softness that made it easier to keep breathing slowly. The hallway outside the bedroom looked gentle in daylight. The framed landscapes seemed brighter, and the pale wall color reflected the sun without glare. Rowan walked toward the kitchen, following the faintest scent of herbs from the little garden outside. carried in through a crack somewhere, as if the cottage liked to share its surroundings. In the kitchen, everything was exactly where it had been left. The clean bowl drying on the rack, the dish towel with its embroidered leaf, the kettle resting on the stove like it belonged there. Rowan's mug from last night sat on the side table in the sitting area, empty and harmless, as if it had done its job and now simply waited to be washed. Rowan washed it anyway, enjoying the warm water and the small routine of it. The sponge still smelled faintly of lemon. The sound of running water was soft, quickly swallowed by the cottage's quiet. Then Rowan opened the bread tin. Inside was a loaf, partly sliced, wrapped in a clean cloth. It smelled like real bread, yeast and warmth and the tiniest whisper of sweetness. Rowan ran a fingertip over the crust, feeling the texture, firm but not hard, like it would yield easily to a gentle knife. There was also a small jar of jam, strawberry, the label handwritten. Beside it, butter in a little crock, pale and smooth. Rowan made breakfast without rushing. A slice of bread, toasted lightly until the edges browned and the kitchen filled with that comforting scent of warm grain. Butter melting slowly into the toast's surface, leaving glossy patches. Jam spread over the top, red and shining in the morning light. Rowan poured tea again, but this time chose mint. The mint scent rose bright and cool in the steam, clearing the mind without waking it too sharply. Rowan carried the toast and tea to the table and sat down, letting the chair support the back. Outside the window, the trees stood quietly, leaves moving only a little. The sky was pale blue, the kind that promised a calm day rather than a dramatic one. The stream's sound was there, steady, always near enough to hear if one listened. Rowan ate slowly. The toast was warm, the jam sweet but not too sweet, the mint tea soothing. Each bite landed gently, like a soft footstep. There was nothing to read right away, nothing to check, nothing to chase. The morning was wide open and kind. When breakfast was finished, Rowan didn't jump up. Rowan simply sat, hands wrapped around the mug, warmth moving into the palms, the faint condensation on the outside of the glass water carafe catching light, the rhythm of the breath staying slow on its own without being forced. It occurred to Rowan that there were places in life where a person had to earn rest, as if rest were a reward handed out only after enough effort. But Maple Cottage, and Briar Glenn beyond it, felt like a place where rest was considered basic. Like water, like shelter, like a chair offered without question. Rowan stood eventually, not because of pressure, but because movement felt pleasant. The cottage door opened easily, and cool morning air slipped in, fresh and clean. The porch boards were smooth beneath Rowan's bare feet, and the garden's scent grew stronger. Mint, maybe rosemary, and something floral, pale and soft. Rowan stepped onto the path and looked around. The cottages were still quiet. A few windows were open, letting curtains breathe. Somewhere, a kettle whistled briefly and then stopped. A person walked slowly in the distance, carrying something wrapped in a cloth. Bread, perhaps. They moved without hurry and did not look like they expected anyone to get in their way. Rowan decided to walk. Not far, not for exercise. Just to be outside, to let the day touch the skin gently. The robe was swapped for a sweater, thick and familiar, and Rowan slipped feet into shoes that felt more comfortable today than they had yesterday, as if even the shoes were relaxing. The path near Maple Cottage followed the stream. Sunlight flickered through leaves and fell in soft patches on the ground. The stream itself was clear, its surface broken by stones that made tiny eddies. The water's sound changed subtly with each bend. Here, a little louder where it met rocks. There, quieter where it slid through a smoother channel. Rowan walked until the path widened near a small wooden sign that read, "Garden Gate." The gate itself was simple, 2 posts and a swinging latch, leading into what looked like a communal garden. Inside, neat beds held winter greens, herbs, and hardy flowers. A small greenhouse stood near the back, its glass slightly fogged, catching the sun. The garden didn't feel like a showcase. It felt used, loved, practical. There were watering cans lined up on a shelf. There were gloves hung on pegs. There was a small bench in the sun that looked like it had supported many quiet sights. Rowan stepped inside. The air smelled darker here, rich with soil. A faint dampness clung to the ground, and the scent of crushed leaves lingered, as if someone had recently been tending. A person was there, kneeling near a bed of herbs, moving slowly with careful hands. Their hair was tucked back, and they wore an apron with pockets full of small tools. When they noticed Rowan, they didn't startle, didn't stare. They simply offered a small smile that made the space feel even safer. "Morning," they said, voice low and gentle, like they didn't want to wake the garden too fast. "Morning," Rowan replied, surprised at how easy it was to speak here. The person stood, brushing soil from their hands. "New in Maple?" Rowan nodded. "Just arrived last night." "Well," they said, and their tone carried no pressure at all. "Welcome. The garden's for everyone. If you like mint, there's plenty. If you like quiet, there's even more." Rowan let out a small breath that might have been a laugh, but softer. "I'm Lark," the person added, as if names here were offered like cups of tea. Warm and optional, never demanded. "Rowan." "Nice to meet you, Rowan." Lark gestured to the bench in the sun. "Sit if you like. The light's good there." Rowan sat. The bench was warmed by sunlight, and the wood felt smooth under the hands. The sun itself was mild, not hot, just pleasantly present on the face and forearms. Rowan watched as Lark returned the herbs, trimming and pinching with unhurried care. There was no need to fill the silence. The garden made its own sounds. A faint rustle, the quiet snip of shears, the soft thump of soil being patted down. A bee drifted by, slow and unbothered, as if it had nowhere else it needed to be. Rowan's eyelids grew heavy again. Not from exhaustion, but from comfort. The body recognized this as a place where it could keep letting go. After a while, Lark stood and came over with a small bundle of mint tied with twine. "For you," they said. "Tea, or just to smell when you feel like it?" Rowan accepted it, fingers brushing the leaves. The scent was fresh and bright. "Thank you." Lark nodded once, like it was the simplest thing in the world to be kind. "If you walk up the path past the greenhouse, there's a little spot by the water where the sun sits on the stones. It's good for doing nothing." Rowan smiled. "That sounds perfect." "It is," Lark said, and returned to their gardening without another word, as if they trusted Rowan to find the day in their own way. Rowan left the garden with the mint in hand and followed the path Lark had mentioned. The path curved behind the greenhouse and then dipped slightly toward the stream. There, as promised, was a flat area with stones warmed by sunlight. The stream widened here, moving slower, making the water sound softer, like it was resting too. Rowan sat on one of the stones. It was warm through the fabric of the pants, warmth spreading outward like a gentle message. Rowan rested the mint bundle on the lap and simply breathed. In, out. The mind tried for a moment to bring up the old habits, lists, worries, plans, but the stream's sound smoothed those thoughts down before they could catch. The sun's warmth softened the edges. The stillness made the mind feel like it didn't have to perform. Rowan watched the water. Light glittered on the surface in tiny moving points. A leaf drifted by, turning slowly, then catching on a stone, then freeing itself again. Nothing about it was dramatic. It simply moved as it moved. Rowan's breathing became slower. The body leaned back slightly, supported by the stone. The shoulders dropped. The hands rested open on the lap, lightly touching the mint leaves. The scent rose each time Rowan shifted. Clean, bright, gentle. Time passed in the simplest way, without being noticed. And when Rowan finally stood, it wasn't because the moment had ended, but because there would be another moment just like it later, and that knowledge was soothing. Back at Maple Cottage, the afternoon unfolded quietly. Rowan made another mug of tea, mint using the fresh bundle, and carried it to the couch. The wool blanket waited, draped in its familiar place. Rowan sat, tucked legs up, and let the warmth of the mug seep into the hands. The cottage was softly lit now, the sun lower, turning the window light golden. Rowan picked up the book on the bedside table and brought it to the couch. Not to read quickly, but to let the eyes move over words at a slow, drifting pace. A page turned now and then. The clock ticked. The stream murmured. Eventually, the book rested face down on Rowan's chest, held there by gravity and comfort. Rowan's eyes closed. Breath deepened. The couch cushions cradled the body, and the blanket's wool warmed the legs. The air in the room held the faint scent of mint tea and clean wood. Outside, leaves moved gently, and the stream continued its steady, sleepy song. Rowan didn't fight sleep. Rowan welcomed it the way the cottage had welcomed Rowan. Quietly, completely, and without needing any explanation. And as the afternoon softened toward evening, Rowan drifted off again, safe, warm, and held by the simple kindness of a place that asked for nothing at all.